maybe just for starters, just to make sure everybody understands what you do, give us a sense of your portfolio at News Corp. I mean, you don't do Fox News, for example.
Well, I think most people probably know News Corp is one of the leading media organizations in the world. And I'm the Chief Digital Officer, and I'm also the Chairman and Chief Executive of Digital Media Group. So I have both direct reporting assets, which I'm in charge of from an operational point of view, as well as the overall kind of digital strategy for the company. And that entails such things as last year we decided to make a big bet on the mobile internet and apps and tablets and things like that, and sort of try to make sure we're in line with the forces at work, as I say.
Yeah.
And then I work with the individual divisions on their products and their roadmaps. So, in simple terms, I think on the one hand, in the first part, I feel like a doctor. If you look at some of the assets there.
So, what are some of the specific assets?
Well, like MySpace and Jamba and IGN, and we maintained our stakes in PhotoBucket and a series of other things. So again, in some places like that, I feel like a doctor, and in the other side, I feel like a midwife. Somewhat between the two.
Okay. And how much, Rupert Murdoch is clearly one of the smartest people in all of what people call old media.
I wouldn't qualify it with old, but media.
Actually, he's one of the smartest people in media, period, right? And must be a really pleasure to work with him. I mean,
it is.
I just remember when I first met him how just struck I was by just how incredibly smart he is.
Smart, and I would say insatiably curious.
Yeah.
He wants to understand everything.
But how much influence do you have when it really comes down to...
Well, it moderates, frankly, by the situation. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the art and the science of doing what I do is knowing, or trying to know, the amount, how far to push, when to push, and with whom. Because you got to let businesses operate, and whether they're directly reporting to you or not, people have to operate their businesses. At the same time, we have to have overall strategies and make some larger bets, particularly, I think, in the transitions that are occurring now. So the art and the science of it is both to have a real strategy, but also to know sort of situation to situation how to apply it.
So what is your real strategy? I mean, again, you have kind of a history as a turnaround guy. You came into AOL, and now you've come into News Corp Digital, in both cases where you had a previous market leader that is being surpassed by newer entrants. And how do you think of, what is your strategy?
Let's talk about, we can talk about News Corp strategy, we can talk about turnarounds. I'll do it in the reverse order. So turnarounds first. I think turnarounds in the internet are really interesting because, first of all, we don't have a great history of them. Yeah. I think this is a problem for us as an industry, because unless we can build sustaining enterprises, all we do is move from one thing to the next, and that tends not to be a great system. It doesn't work for investors, it doesn't work for buyers, it doesn't work for people trying to keep jobs. I mean, you sort of just have this churn. So I think one of the things we have to figure out as an industry overall is how we sustain companies. And it's not a good industry when at any moment in time there's only 2 or 3, and that's really, I think, what we're talking about, 2 or 3 genuinely healthy companies. That's not a good thing for all of us. So
what do you think the 2 or 3 are?
Well, they're pretty easy. I mean, you can talk about Google and Facebook and Apple and Twitter on the rise and things like that. But I mean, beyond that, there's not a long list, and that's not good. Particularly when you consider how many great people have done so many great things, how much capital's been invested, and how much effort there's been. That's not a great outcome. In the media industry, there's been large media companies that have sustained for 100 years. And that's the kind of thing I think you need to really build. And we tend to just jump to the new thing. So turnarounds in this industry, I think, first of all, you have to say product-led. It's not marketing-led. It's not, it's not whatever else you might think. First of all, it's the product. And second, you have to usually do more rather than less. And that means you have to be more willing to take chances and be more radical than protective. And that's hard for organizations to do, because typically you figure you got something that you want to protect, and the hardest thing is to let most of that go and say, I got to take a leap. You get no points in this industry for, as I put it, showing up or playing catch-up.
So give us a concrete example. So MySpace,
yes.
What's something you're leaping forward with and not trying to protect?
Has a relaunch for a little over a month from now, and it's kind of locked in place at this point. Code complete. We're moving forward, and it's a real swing, as I say. It is not Me Too. It is all about real self-expression, a new take on content, and how that gets to the individual, and it gets very personalized, and how that really works, and the mechanics of it. It looks pretty good. I mean, really good. And I think some people, I hope, are going to love it, and for sure some people will not. And I think that's what you have to. That's a risk. It's not building one step in front of the other. It's saying we're going from where we were to a future, and you have to be willing to take that jump.
So when we talked in our prep call, one of the things we talked about was the mobile usage, and that seems like one of the areas that you guys are betting big on. But at the same time, it's not clear, what the scale of monetization is going to be. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a tough one because the usage in mobile is well out probably for just about everybody is well out in front of the monetization. And so on the one hand, that's your future, right? There's no question that becomes probably the majority of your future. And we've even seen this in MySpace where the logins from a mobile environment are accelerating incredibly rapidly, and are almost half the usage right now, or half the logins. And that's happening very, very fast, but the money is behind it. And so you do have a dilemma, which is, do you go where you are going to be, or do you just try to hold on to every last penny in sort of the old world? And without being irresponsible, the answer is you have to go where you're going to end up, and you have to just deal with that.
I mean, do you see any bright spots for mobile monetization?
I think over time, particularly as you have devices now from smartphones to tablets that are really great media consumption devices. They're really good experiences. I mean, I'm in love with my iPad, and there are other nice, competitive devices coming, and they are fantastic media environments, and that also means they are advertising environments. And I think it becomes more heavily video-centric. So I think one of the bright spots in both mobile and the so-called traditional web is video. And I think we'll see video and premium video being an accelerant.
So premium video, of course, is paid content, not necessarily ad-supported content.
Well, both. I do think both premium video is paid and premium video advertising are both on the upswing.
So it's going to be kind of like cable, where we pay and we still have to get advertising. That's a bad future.
It's actually a good future if you're on the other side, because dual revenue streams work. I mean, if you go back to what is the healthiest thing in the media business right now and has been for a while, it's dual revenue stream businesses. That's why broadcast networks are not as healthy as cable networks. And in the digital world, again, a single revenue stream business for most people has not been a great experience.
Mm-hmm. So,
from the producer side,
talk about devices, mobile, and there seemed to be a lot of excitement when we talked before about sort of the app economy. A big question for I think everybody here is Android versus iOS. How are you guys thinking about that?
Well,
and HTML5 in the mix, is that something you guys?
First of all, I mean, to state the obvious, Apple's way out there already, right, and has really established something. So you must be there. And I think you have to, at the same time, it really seems impressive what the Google and the Android system is sort of mounting and about to deliver to the market. So we're committed to those platforms, and we think we can be, think about one or two others, and that's about as far as we can go to we think, really be great at delivering experiences. And let me tell you just an example why. Probably most people know News Corp. We have a lot of newspapers, and we're offering them many of them on the iPad. In Australia alone, we have 150 newspapers. So imagine, trying to do, multiple platform development for 150 different publications in an area the size of Australia. That's a significant undertaking. So we want to create great experiences, and we want to really focus on the platforms. I think a question about the Android system that's interesting is Apple is kind of, if you deal with Apple, you're kind of done. You don't really deal directly with the carriers, and they are the manufacturer. In the Android ecosystem, you have Google, you have the OEMs, and you have the carriers, and it's not clear to me who's doing what to whom at this time, and who where
they all want a piece of the pie.
Everyone has they're pursuing their version of what their business models are, and they're not homogeneous, meaning there's different carriers and there's lots of different OEMs. And so I think the Android system has a way to go to become streamlined from a supplier standpoint.
As far as I know, more of the iPhone and iPad apps are paid apps than on Android. There's more advertising, though, in the Android ecosystem. Is that something you guys are seeing as well?
We're seeing a little bit more. I think, look, ultimate consumers will decide how much is what they are comfortable with. But yes, we are seeing response rates in that system pretty good. And it's encouraging because you do want to see click-through take place. So
I'm going to ask you another question. I mean, this is Ad Week. Talk about trends in advertising, and particularly with respect to, say, the news business. Because that's one of the things everybody anguishes about. Is the news business going to survive? How's it going to get paid for? What's happening in advertising, and are there any bright spots there that people should be thinking about?
Let me do advertising, then I'll do news. Okay. So advertising generally. So advertising generally, I think the big thing, and it's been for a while, is how does display advertising move into the online environment? And clearly there will be premium display, and now there's the rise of the exchange model, like the DoubleClick exchange, Google Exchange. A big question there.
So just explain a little bit, unpack that for people. How does DoubleClick exchange work, and how does it change the game?
Well, for the first time, there's a marketplace at scale for display advertising, and where you can do real-time bidding or very close to it. So the best offer wins, and so you have a tremendous amount of liquidity, i.e. supply, being surfaced to demand.
So display advertising becoming more Google-like.
Yes, so it's the movement of it, yes, if you want to use that way of saying it, into a more Google-like environment. Now the question is, what other, will there be rivals to that achieve scale? And there's everything from, and that's a big company question, from companies like Microsoft or Yahoo, and it's also a smaller company question. I happen to be involved in a company called OpenX, which is building an exchange on an open source platform. Right. So I think that's one that is going to get sorted through in the next few years, and the question will be, there's clearly going to be Google, it's done. The question is, are there going to be others? I think the world would be better served if there were at least a couple of competitive.
There also strikes me that there may be entirely new kinds of monetization. I was just talking yesterday with the CEO of TrialPay, which basically makes offers to people after they make a purchase in e-commerce. People, or they try to monetize things that aren't currently monetized, whether it's Skype or Facebook credits. Most people don't actually pay, but they're willing to buy something and get this sort of, as a loyalty point, get this sort of other reward. And they're really taking off, and they're starting to think about, how do you actually, create alternate forms of advertising that aren't based on either search or display.
Yeah, so I'm happy to get back to newspapers, but I think one of the interesting things in the past couple of years has been services like that and micropayments that have come out of particularly the gaming environment. And who would have thought that people would pay for virtual goods to put on their farm? And the answer is enough people would pay a fair amount of money to stock their farm. So I think there will be these additional forms of payment. However, I still think the two big ones are going to be direct fees from consumers in one form, which could encompass micropayments, and advertising. And just so, and I didn't want to skip newspapers, if that's okay.
Go.
Yeah, I think there's an overall thing that newspapers are part of, which is the content environment is expanding, or production is expanding so fast, so rapidly. Things like Facebook and Twitter contribute to that. It's impossible for advertising to cover all of that. Just the math will not work. The advertising can't grow anywhere near as fast as the content can grow and be produced and proliferate. So you have to have certain things that happen. One is you're going to have segmentation inside content, and that will get much, much greater, I believe. And two is you have to have dual revenue streams, or if you're a producer of content that costs money. And I don't see any way around those conclusions. And without that, I think we will have an unhealthy journalistic enterprise overall.
I know we're running out of time, but I want to ask you one last question, and that is, give me something you're really excited about and something you're really worried about.
Jeez. Let me try to do really excited.
Now start with worried, because then you can end on a good note.
Okay. Now, I am worried about, I am worried in all honesty about the health, it's what I said before, about the health of companies that have gotten out and achieve 100 or more million users, but can't easily sustain or readily sustain. I do think that's an issue for the industry. I certainly worry about that. And the second thing that I worry about, and we probably don't have time to go into it in depth, is the overall model for produced content, i.e. television and film, you have new introductions of over-the-top players and so on. That is a big deal to the entire media model. I'll give you the converse, which is what I'm excited about. What's exciting about it is that these devices, where a lot of this media can be consumed, are getting really good. I mean, there was always like they're going to be good someday, but they're good now. I mean, I love my iPad. I've stopped traveling with my PC, and I travel all the time, and I'm happy to go with my my iPhone, my BlackBerry, and my iPad. And these things that you see coming, the better screens, things with cameras, all this kind of stuff, they're great, and it's kind of exciting. I mean, the experience is terrific now.
I completely agree. I think we're in for a really winning period. Lots of competition, lots of new technology, and lots of change. So that's lots of opportunity. Yeah. So good luck to you.
Well, thank you.
In finding that opportunity. Yeah, you need a hand. All right. Thanks a lot, John.
Yeah.
It's great.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.